You thought the Mineta video was gonna be the weird, freaky one. Nope, Koda all the way. No one ever suspects Koda. Alright, so I feel like I should start off with the hashtag. Not a furry, and Koda really isn't either. I don't want people to think that I have all of this stuff set up because Koda is a furry. He's not. He just has a quirk that allows him to talk to animals, right? And it's not even like his outfit is like an animal outfit. Like, he really could have went crazy with it. He could have had an outfit like a wolf or something, because Koda is really not the most physically intimidating person. I mean, he could be if he really wanted to, because he looks like a rock creature kind of thing, like the rock biter from Neverending Story 3, Neverending Story 3, not the cool, dignified one, the one that was like, you know, riding around on that rock motorcycle. Remember that? Yeah, that was a weird flick. Jack Black was in that one. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. The point is, yeah, Koda has a very distinct appearance, and out of all of the members of Class 1A, I was kind of sitting there in the early chapters waiting for him to do something cool. Because I'm like, all right, well, Horikoshi obviously gave him a really unique appearance. The way he looks, I thought he was going to have some kind of rock-based quirk. And in fact, I was really surprised when Kirishima was the one that had the hardening ability. Because I'm like, oh, okay, so you make a character that looks like a rock creature, but you give the hardening ability to Kirishima. I'm like, okay, well, what can this kid do? And I'll be honest with you, at first I was curious, but then after a while, after a few story arcs, this strange thing happened where I just completely forgot Koda was a character. Was I the only one? Because, like, you know, during the battle trial, I'm sitting there like, all right, let's see what this kid can do. And we don't really see anything with him there. And then the USJ, and he doesn't do anything there, really. And then by the time the Sports Fest rolled around, I was just like, who? Who is this guy? What does he do? And I just like, I guess Horikoshi just forgot about him, whatever. So, Koda is the shy kid. I think we've all known people like that when we were in high school. I was kind of like that. I mean, back, you know, then I was way more introverted than I am now. Now I'm much more open, and I think I have YouTube to thank for that. And now I can just go up to anybody and just start a conversation about random stuff. But when I was in high school, it was the complete opposite. It was a total flip. I was very introverted, you know, just, you know, sit in the back of the study hall and just let me read my manga and just leave me alone, basically. I had a group of friends, but they were all kind of like socially outcasted as well. So I wasn't quite as shy as Koda, because Koda is shy to the point where he doesn't even really talk. And I actually knew people like that too in high school. There was a girl I went to school with from elementary school all the way up through high school. Okay, so in America, that's like, you know, 12 grades, right? And I could probably count on my one hand the number of sentences I've heard this girl speak. And it wasn't like she was like mute or anything, like she could talk. It's just that whenever she talked, it was very low, very quiet. And it wasn't like she wasn't popular or anything. It's just that she had a very quiet voice and you could barely hear her. So that kind of reminds me of Koda a little bit, where Koda is a guy that's just, he's not very vocal. He just doesn't talk. Which is ironic, considering his quirk and a voice is completely centered around talking. So that's something that Koda really needs to work on. He needs to improve on his shyness. So his training during the mountain camp arc was just to, like, while the other students were, like, you know, stretching their quirks to their utmost limit, like, Sero was expunging all of this tape, and he's like, oh god, it hurts, and Todoroki's in this tub trying to regulate his temperature, and freaking Tokoyami's in the middle of a battle with Dark Shadow in this cave, while everybody's in this intense training regiment. Koda kind of got off easy. Koda was just on top of a mountain and just screaming, so practicing vocal exercises to improve the range of his voice, but also to help him get less shy, so he's okay with it. You know, and he's actually a very eloquent kid. I mean, whenever he does talk, it's usually in these very, like, high-level kind of words and phrases, like when he was commanding the insects to attack Present Mike. He's like, "Hear me henceforth, my insectoid friends! We must quell that cacophony of noise spewing forth from the origin point of the forest. Head toward that location at once. So he has a very, he's not an idiot or anything. He's just shy. That's all he has, really. And it's funny because the voice, at least like in the English dub, it's not like an annoying or like weird kind of voice or anything like that. I mean, it's not like based off his appearance, like the intimidating kind of large built, rock kind of character. Maybe you would expect a really like sort of deep voice, like I'm Koji Koda. But the way his like facial expressions are, you can tell he's a really gentle soul that doesn't really want to hurt people. So out of everybody in Class 1A, I mean, like he's like the exact opposite of like somebody like Bakugo, where he really does just want to be a hero to help others, and he really doesn't want to hurt anybody. He's the kind of, listen, okay, you know what Koji needs to do as soon as he graduates? I'll tell you exactly. He needs to do like an Android 17 kind of thing from Dragon Ball, okay? After he graduates UA, gets his hero license, he needs to move to the African savannah. Why the African savannah, Matt? Well, because he is going to be a hero in charge of protecting the animals from poachers. All right, because My Hero Academia still takes place in our present world. I'm sure there's poachers that are using their quirks as villains to try to take out, like the rare animals and stuff like that. Koji needs to go out there because then he would have access to elephants and lions and giraffes and leopards and cheetahs and hippos and all of the like piranhas in the water, like all of these deadly African animals. Can you imagine like the poachers like readying their guns? Like, I'm not using a bank heist this time as an example. Kalu Kalay. But finally, like these like poachers are like, all right, let's go try to take those rhinos. Let's shoot them and steal their horns for medicine or whatever. And so they go and attack, and then all of a sudden, Koji comes in riding on a bull African elephant, like, charge my Herculean brother! And then he has an entire pride of lions that just pop up out of nowhere. And he's like, cheetahs, chase down their jeep! Okay, he's like, that would be so freaking cool, man. That would be incredible. That would be amazing. That's what Koji needs to do. And it would fit perfectly for what he does, because he's a pacifist, he's a kind-hearted guy. He just needs to, like, I'm just gonna protect the animals. That's what my duty as a hero is, as the petting hero, Anima. Okay, points for the name Anima. That's a cool-ass name. Alright, at least you're not just Animal Man or whatever. But the petting hero, that's your epithet, really, Koda? The petting hero. Look, bro, I have nothing wrong with that. Like, seriously, it's just, it could be misconstrued. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, let me tell you a fun story one time. I gotta tell you this story, okay? This is embarrassing for a family member of mine, but I gotta tell you this, okay? So, my mother, one time she was setting up an account on the internet. I can't remember what website it was for. It was like for some random website that she was trying to join with. So she needed to use a username, right? You have to set a username. And, I'm setting it up for her because she doesn't really know how to do all that stuff. And I'm like, what username do you want to use? And my mom is famous in this area for making fudge. She loves, she's a really great baker, and she's been on like local access TV, and she's won like 100 ribbons at county fairs. Like, she just won like 15 blue ribbons at the local fair, so she's really well known for making fudge. That's like her thing. That's like her version of my YouTube, okay? So she's like, how about like Fudge Girl or Fudge Lady? And I'm like, I am not typing that in. It's not happening. No way. Like, because from her perspective, it's like, oh, that's my thing. That's what I do. I think it's cute. I'm like, but it could be construed in other ways. I'm like, no, God, no. I'm not putting it in there, So we picked something else. But yeah, that was no way. So yeah, that's what Koda needs to do, though. He needs to get his hero license, go to the African savannah, and just, at an animal preserve, and just save the cute little lions and the leopards and everything from being poached, and the rhinos. Oh, can you imagine if Koda can control an entire, what's the plural of rhino? I know it's a pride of lions, but what's a group of rhinos called? Whatever, I don't care. He needs to do that, right? Imagine he's trying to cross a river in Africa, and they're like, what are we gonna do? There's no boat to get across to save the animals. It's like, Koda's like, don't worry, I got this. Come to me, my hippopotamus friends. And like the hippos just arrive, and you can just like bounce on them like in Crash Bandicoot, or you could just like ride on the hippos across the water. That'd be so freaking cool, right? Or marine life. That's another thing too. Koda's Voice can control any animal except for humans. They have to make an exception for that. I mean, we are still we're human. I mean, we're humans. That's part of the animal kingdom, guys. We're part of that. We are Homo sapiens. Yes. So they have to make sure you can't, manipulate humans at will, because that might be a little bit too OP. But beyond that, mammals, insects, fish, birds, it doesn't matter. Now, here's the thing, though, also about that. Most of the time we see Koda utilizing his Voice, he's usually in the city, because that's where My Hero Academia takes place. It takes place in like a district of Tokyo. I can't remember the exact district, but it takes place in Tokyo, right? So whenever they're like the provisional license exam or something, or doing a battle trial, he doesn't usually have a lot of, animals to call to his aid. It's usually just birds. Like during the provisional license exam, he commanded an entire flock of pigeons to obscure the enemy's vision. He'll have like a hawk or an eagle friend that he can my hawk friend, go and ascend to the skies and survey the land and report back to me with your news. Send me the big news, you seagull. He needs to get a seagull. As long as it's not Jonathan Livingston's seagull, we'll be good. Anyway, so yeah, he usually relies on birds for that, but that's also extremely limiting, because the number of animals that are in a urban setting, rats, he could use rats, but Koda, see, the thing is, he's very afraid of certain animals. Like, he's terrified of insects, so creepy crawly things. I can't imagine if he was that terrified of insects, he may also be terrified of rats or other animals, and if that's the situation, then we're gonna have some problems there. You know what I mean? So, he has to get over that as well, because he was able to control the insects to take out Present Mike, and look how powerful that was. Where he could issue a command to these insects, they burrowed underground and just attacked the enemy. And granted, Present Mike was already kind of he was afraid of bugs, so that's why it was so effectual against him. But, I mean, think about it. If you could, he could just go up to a colony of ants and be like, my ant friends, attention! And then, thousands of ants just spew out of the colony and just arrange themselves in, regimented patterns, and he could command an entire army of ants. Or he could go up to a beehive. I'm terrified of wasps, but Koda doesn't have to be. Koda could just, if he goes up to a beehive and just be like, my insect friends, please all assemble outside in a mighty cloud of which I can use to my will. And then the bees just... And then, Koda has, bees that he could just send at his opponents. All this stuff, that would be cool. Now, okay, let's talk about the limits of this, all right? Now, at the end of the day, they're still, single-minded animals that he is manipulating. And when I say single-minded, I don't mean animals are stupid. They just, for insects' case, they really don't have the faculties to think as an individual. All right, the whole point of an ant, of a soldier ant, is that its duty is to protect the colony and to find food for the queen. Rick and Morty actually did a really funny sketch with this once, where Rick invented a device that allowed Morty to hear what animals were thinking, and so he used it on a bunch of ants that were on the ground, and the ants were all thinking the same thing. It's just we need to get food for the queen, the queen makes babies, more babies, good, colony, food for the queen. That's all they thought about, because that's all they have. So I assume that whenever Koda uses his Voice, especially on insects, he's giving them very simple orders, and the insects obey them just as they would obey their natural instincts. They don't even have the faculties to stop and think about, why should I listen to that guy? I'm an ant. I'm taking food to my queen. Why should I listen to this guy and go attack that dude over there with the giant speaker? Not that an insect would even understand what a speaker is or anything. I'm just saying that it's just completely overrides, and it's just a natural instinct to them. Whenever Koda gives you ant, climb on top of that tree, the only thing that ant can think of is just, gotta save the queen, gotta help the queen. Gotta climb that tree, gotta climb that tree, gotta climb that tree. It's just a thing in its head. It's issuing a command. Now, for larger animals, I don't know, because like I said, we haven't really seen Koda manipulate, elephants or even dogs, really. That's something else. If you're in an urban setting, there'd be a lot of dogs around. Oh, and by the way, we're doing an episode on Koda. Of course, I wanted my dog to be present in this. I have a dog, but...
This is Duchess. She is a boxer. She is adorable. And she is Actually, fun fact, she's actually best dog. Yeah, the entire planet, best dog. I bet you didn't know that, but she is. Hey, Duchess, wanna help me out with a video today? Talking about this kid that has like a cone head sort of deal and he can talk to animals, so thought that would be a great...
Yeah, whatever, Duchess, I love you too! The other day, my mom was watching, A Dog's Purpose. That movie is so freaking sad. Well, it reminded me of Marley and Me. You ever watch Marley and Me? God, I'm watching it and I'm like, why can't there be a movie about a dog where it's just like, the dog is a puppy and then it's so happy and then it grows up and it's a dog and everybody's happy and then the movie ends. Like Air Bud. Can we get another movie like Air Bud? Air Bud, perfect dog movie. They get Buddy as a little puppy, and then they raise him, and he, gets a little bit older, but not too old to the point where it's really sad, and then he plays basketball, and they win the championship, and everything is happy, and that's where the movie ends. I don't think they ever made a sequel to Air Bud where Buddy is on the, it's like 10 years later, and like he's sitting in a room filled with all the trophies that he won, and he's wearing his tattered old jersey, and the dog is just this 15-year-old golden retriever, and he just slowly like... But yeah, A Dog's Purpose, man, that movie, there's a scene in the movie at the end where the dog is getting older, and they give the dog a voice, so you can actually hear what the dog is thinking, and it's so sad, because the dog is like sitting on a porch, and it's like, I just don't feel like playing much anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing this to me, movie? I cried. It was a very sad movie, but it was a good movie too. It's not a bad movie. It's just, damn, is it sad? Especially if you've ever had a dog that passed away. I'm getting a little bit too sad here. I'm moving on. All right. So, okay, but, is there a limit to the orders that he could issue to animals? I'm sure there is. I'm sure he could not go up to a dog and say, you, dog, perform this very complicated math equation or something. Like, write this thing down with I'm going to put this pen in your mouth and write out this thing. Like, there's probably a limit to what he can issue out to, okay? I mean, maybe if he's controlling, like monkeys or something that are maybe closer to humans, maybe he could do that. Maybe he could give a monkey a little bit more complicated orders, But when it comes to certain animals, I'm assuming it's just, like, very basic stuff. Like, dog, I command you to go over there and attack that villain, or something of that nature. Or birds, I command you to flock around me and just fly around. Now, even though he does seem to have, pretty much basic control over animals, like I said with the insects and everything, they don't seem to question it, they just kind of do it. They're still living creatures, so if something happens that is, like, terrifying, they're gonna leave. So if he summons a bunch of birds to attack a villain, but then let's say the villain had an electrical quirk and brought down a lightning bolt or something, like, boom! The birds are going to be like, oh, screw that, we're out of here, It's like the animal instincts are going to take over at that point, like, oh, and they're just going to be too scared to come. The same thing when they were fighting Present Mike. That's the reason that the school put them up against them. It was Koda and Jiro, who both had sound-based quirks, against Present Mike, who was like the master of sound-based quirk. He has just the quirk voice. And so Jiro was trying to figure out a way to fight him, and Jiro's like, can't you command, because we're in the forest right now, couldn't you command, like, the animals, like the foxes or a bear or something, to attack him? And Koda, he actually speaks in kind of like a version of sign language, not really. I took a sign language course, I can't remember too much of it, but Koda's is, like, very simplistic. It's just like, he's like, no, I can't do that because they'll run away if I command them because of his voice. So it's like pantomime, not really sign language, more like pantomime, just like miming out what the words he are so, people can understand him, like the basics of what he's saying. In fact, I don't even think we heard Koda's voice until that fight, the end of semester exam with Jiro and Present Mike. I think that's the first time we ever even heard what his voice was. Now, since then, Koda has improved. He does speak a little bit more and everything like that. I remember the scene when they were going to the training camp and they were, the pussycats appear on that ledge and they knock them off, and it's like, you have to make it to that lodge by noon. And the first thing that happens is Pixie Bob's, like, I think that was her quirk, she can and, mold the earth into like giant like animals to attack them, they thought that it was an actual animal. So Koda rushes to the aid. So he's very loyal. He's shy with his own voice and things, but his friends are in danger. He's like one of the first people to jump in. He's like, please, my giant friend, you don't want to hurt them, and he's like trying to plead with it, but it's not a real animal, so it doesn't work. It's just a mound of earth. But, he's not a coward. He's just, he's just shy. He doesn't like to use his voice very often. But if he wants to be an effectual hero, he's got to get over that. Speaking of being a pro hero, I actually found some fan art. Some people sent me this of a really badass pro version of Koda, like 10 years later when he's a professional hero. This looks really cool. He needs to get like an animal, like wherever like the African savanna would work great, but wherever he does his hero activities, he needs to have like animals to help him out. Like that's the whole point of his quirk. He has to maybe even work as like an animal shelter, get some dogs to follow you around and work as your aide. Now Koda is he's very peace-loving at the same time, so he probably doesn't want the animals he controls to get hurt either. So he might also want to develop a way to fight on his own, so he can fight alongside the animals as well, because, Koda might just be like, I'm going to send these, let's say he's in the outback in Australia now, and he's like, I will send the dingoes to go attack the villains. But he's probably like, I don't want the dingoes to get hurt. I better come and fight too. So maybe, I don't know, a whip? Not in the sense of like he's whipping the animals. That's a little too cruel. But, just the idea of like he's like a ringmaster at a circus or something. Maybe you could go with that aesthetic. So he wouldn't actually use the whip on the animals. He would use them on the villains, but just a weapon, just to go with the aesthetic here. I will command my animals to attack you, and then I take out the whip to like an opponent takes out a gun to shoot a dog or something. He's just like, ha-ha! Indiana Jones up in here! That kind of thing. So, yeah, that would be a cool design. Ever since the provisional license exam, he had an upgrade to his outfit. He has a mask now that allows him to increase the range of his voice, and also it's kind of the same thing with Shinso's. Shinso has a vocal quirk as well, allowing to brainwash people. So he has a mask now that he can adjust the different like sounds that he hears to mimic his voice, so people will respond to him. And so Koda has something similar to that, where he can not only control the volume of his voice so it reaches a wide area so more animals can hear him, however it can also change the frequency, because there's some animals that can only hear certain frequencies of sound, like dogs for instance. So you can adjust the frequency. Like dogs can obviously hear like, when we speak to them, but Koda could adjust the frequency here, so he gives an order to a dog, and maybe the dog is the only one that hears it, so no one else around him does. Because if he has to issue the order first, the villain can just, keep watch for what he's going to do. Like, Koda could be like, you dogs, circle around from the back and attack that villain. The villain, if he hears that, could like, oh, I better wait for an attack from the back. That's where it's coming from. But if Koda adjusts the frequency, like, hey, dog, go and attack from the back, the villain doesn't hear that, and, the dog can do it, and boom. So there you are. Oh, and the mask also gives him eyeliner for some reason. I don't know why he added that, but okay. Koda's room is something, as you can imagine, it's filled with like stuffed animals and things. There's like little cutouts of animals on his bulletin board, so that's kind of adorable. He has a bunny, so a bunny to practice his quirk on. I'm imagining like, because if he can talk to animals and he can hear animals as well, because like he'll send out a bird to go and scout the area, and the bird will come back, and Koda can understand what the bird is like relaying to him, so he can understand animals as well. Koda would, I'm assuming he's a vegan, because like, how do you do that? Like, if you could, like, you go to a farm and you'd be like, hey cow, what's up? He's like, no, not much, just chilling out. How are you doing? Like, if he could talk to animals and understand them back and everything, and he's been doing this his whole life, ever since he was a little kid, like talking to animals and just having a good time, then I imagine at this point he would probably be either vegetarian or vegan or something. He's like, I can't eat animals at this point. But yeah, he has a little bunny friend that he keeps in his room to practice his quirk on and everything, and so that would be neat. But yeah, he could also use it in other ways, like Reconnaissance, for instance. Do you guys remember Shino from Naruto? Shino could control bugs, and there was during the Chunin exam, he sent out like a fly to observe an opponent during their test, and the fly came back and like made a shape. like of 8. So he's like, oh, the answer is number 8. So he could do that with insects, maybe. Like, if he gets over that fear, he can be like, you know, my insect friends, please go through that vent up there and relay the information back to me, what's happening on the other side. And so, you know, the bugs would be limited on what they could tell him, but if it's something basic that they can, like, maybe spell out, or, like, if he controlled, like, an entire colony of ants, he could get the ants to look at something, and then the ants could come back, and he could take, like, I don't know, like a blank sheet of paper or something, and set it down, and then the ants could go on the sheet of paper and spell out what they say, or what they see or something. I don't know if they could do that, but if that's, like, what the limit of his quirk is, sure. Of course, I guess that would, you know, at that point, you'd have to figure, like, ants would know the alphabet, which I don't think that would work too well, unless they were the ants from, like, Phase 4 or some shit. You ever watch Phase 4? It's an old 70s movie where ants receive hyper-intelligence, and they begin to take over the world. It's a little bit slow-moving, and it's kind of trippy at times, because it was the 70s. Dude, what do you want? But it's a really good movie. It's one of my favorite sci-fi movies from that era. I was going to maybe watch it on a movie night at some point. We can find a way to watch that. But yeah, so that's Koda right there. Now, in terms of what he's actually done in the series, like I said, that's kind of limited. Battle Trial. The first time, anyway, he was teamed up with Sato, so they were the villains protecting the bomb there, and there was the scene where, like, Sato was pumping himself up, like, yeah, let's do this, and then Koda's off to the side, like, okay. So he was, like, afraid of him, because he's, like, you know, Sato's this big, muscular, intimidating dude, and Koda, he could be intimidating if he wanted to. In fact, I'm waiting for that. That'd be so cool if we get into a scene where, like, he's fighting with his friends, and his friends get beaten down in front of him, and you see Koda, like, get physically mad. Because I think if he's mad, like, if his facial expression changes, his body, that would be very intimidating. But that was all we saw in the battle trial. And then during USJ, he was teamed up with Tokoyami, but he was basically just using himself as bait there, like, oh, I'm a defenseless little hero student, I hope no one comes and attacks me, and then the villains would jump him, and then Tokoyami appears with Dark Shadow and beats the crap out of them. So that was a cool little thing they did. They at least played to their strengths there. They were in the flood zone, or the high rain zone, so they didn't really have a lot of animals to summon there, so Koda was just basically used as bait. See, that's the thing with Koda's quirk, is if he's in an area that doesn't have any animals that he can control, his quirk is kind of useless. That's why he needs to train better on not just summoning animals from a wide range, but he has to carry a weapon, something on him where he could fight. Because if you're in the middle of the city, and it's like, okay, what do I have to work with here? I have 2 pigeons, a rat, and there's a centipede on the ground. Oh, great. This is all I have to work with here. I mean, you could command, like, all the animals in the region, come to my location, hear my voice. It might take a while for them to get there, though, you know, depending on where you are. Now, if you're in the subway or something, you could, like, control, like, an entire army of rats. But, oh my god, that would be terrifying. That would be terrifying. Like, you're a villain, you're trying to do your villainy deeds, and all of a sudden, just rats just start exploding out of the sewers of Manhattan, like, oh my god! So, yeah, but it's an effectual quirk. You just have to be in the right place in order to use it. But of course, Koda grew up his entire life probably in this area, so he's probably used to understanding, like, okay, what animals are most likely to be in this region I'm in right now. Like, he would do his research. I just realized the only plushie that I own that isn't a Pokemon plushie is this llama. So, hey guys, I'm a llama. Maybe, oh man, they should do a parody of The Emperor's New Groove, but instead of, who is the guy that was played by John Goodman? Was it like Chaka or something? Pacha or something? Instead of Pacha, they should do, Koda and Kuzco. That would work great. That would be great. They need to do like a parody of that. But yeah, other than that, Koda is a pretty cool student. I got nothing against him. I hope he doesn't turn out to be the traitor. See, here's the thing. He's the shy kid, and he gives off this very pacifist, peaceful kind of character. You know, look at him there, just frolicking with all the different animals, just in peace. You know, you might think, oh, he's the traitor. If he was turned out to be the traitor, it would make sense, but at the same time, it would be like, he doesn't really get that much screen time, because whoever the traitor is, if the traitor is going to be a member of Class 1A, I want it to be someone like it would matter if they were the traitor. Like, if it turns out Sato or Koda were the traitor this whole time, I'd be like, oh, okay, the 2 characters that get the least amount of screen time turned out to be evil. Yeah, didn't see that coming. So, you know, I mean, I don't think he is. I think he's just a very shy, very peaceful kid. And we saw a flashback with him and his mom when he got accepted into UA. And, you know, the expression his mom is a very nurturing kind of woman and just like, oh, my sweetie, you got into UA. That's so precious. And so let me a little bit of coddling. And, you know, he grew up in like without really dealing with a lot of opposition. He's going to have to learn, you know, when he becomes a hero, you know, people are going to be straight up out to kill you. So you might want to, you know, harden up a little bit there and take like the rock skin. Maybe that's the joke. Like he has rock-like skin, but he's very soft on the inside. He's a very gentle soul. But I like Koda. I don't see any reason not to like him. It's just doesn't really get a lot of action in the series, so I've ranked him as number 17 on my you know, students, you know, my personal opinion roster there. Number 17, Koji Koda. Okay, kids, and with that being said, we only have 4 students remaining in Class 1A. I think it's time we bump up the dice level a little bit. We're going to not 1, not 2, but 3 D20s this time around. Oh man, now I feel like Duke Devlin right now from Yu-Gi-Oh! Like with the Dungeon Dice Monsters where they take like the dice, like, go, dice roll! Alright, let's see what we got. I wonder who it's gonna be. Remember, we go by the dice that are on the far left for you. So we're number 6s right now. So if by some miracle we do end up rolling 2 of, like, if we roll number 4, who's Ida, and number 8, who's Kirishima, we go with the one that's the furthest to the left. Okay, so here we go. Go, dice roll! What do we got? 6, 5, 5 is Uraraka! Yes! Okay, alright, okay. So, here's the deal. Uraraka's is gonna be the most extensive out of all of these, but I think I have pretty much everything I need, all of the major stuff that I needed to get that I had to order, like, off Amazon, all of that stuff. I have all of that. So that's all ready to go. With that being said, I'm not certain it's going to get out next week. I will try to get it out next week. I'm not 100%, but you will be happy with it. Trust me. And Uraraka is, of course, best girl, so we're going to be talking a lot about her. It's probably going to be another hour-long something episode. Also, it's the last girl that we talk about. The last girl of Class 1A is of course the best girl, so you save the best for last. That's great. I have this distinct feeling that Izuku's gonna be last. You know, place your bets on that one, kids. I have this feeling that Izuku's gonna be last. If I could assume, I'm gonna guess it's gonna go Uraraka, then Kirishima, then Ida, then Izuku. That's what I'm putting my money on right now. We're not betting, but that's what I'm putting my money on. All right. So, yep. This was a fun video, and next week, or maybe the week after that, it depends on when I get it done, but you'll like it. Ochako Uraraka. Man, I wonder what I should do for that one. Go into space, everybody!